In this video, we're going to be taking a look at activity 133 called Constraining a Sketch in the IED curriculum. And for this video, we're going to start off, I'm going to break this up into a series of smaller videos. When you look in through the curriculum and on this activity, I'm going to be starting on with step 3, which is going to involve sketching a concave polygon. And then I'm going to move through step number 8, which will kind of finish up this section on the activity. So I'm going to break it up by its different sections in order to make these videos a little bit more concise and a little bit easier to follow. All right, first thing I'm going to start off with is I'm going to create a new sketch. And I'm going to start off with the front plane here to work from. And I'm going to create, so for those of you following along or maybe have the image of the curriculum as well, you can go through and kind of see what we're going to be creating. So I'm not going to necessarily start with my endpoint on the origin as kind of noted from the picture they're wanting us to draw, but I'm going to go around and create this kind of concave polygon shape. All right, one thing is about Fusion as you start to look at some of the different things and what they want us to do in these first 3 steps. So number 3 has us going through and drawing a polygon. One thing you're going to end up seeing as you sketch, we're going to get some automatic constraints, and that's what the next section in this video series is going to focus on. It is going to be looking at what kind of automatic constraints get applied. So you'll see here these are parallel constraints. These 2 lines are parallel to each other. And then these 2 lines, as you can see, they kind of highlight in a little bit darker blue when you hover over them. Those 2 lines, the one that's right under my mouse cursor and then the one at the very bottom along the x-axis, are going to be parallel to each other. This one, also this line here at the very bottom, is going to be horizontal. So those at times get applied. You can delete these, you can take away these relationships, you can add more relationships using the constraints menu here. So all those are available. These are known as also geometric constraints. But really what they want us to do is just to go through and explore kind of the movement, because all these lines are blue. When we go through and start actually sketching and we start getting ready to extrude and create different models, we want these lines to turn black. So the black lines indicate a fully constrained sketch. We always want to make sure we have a fully constrained sketch before we move on to extrude or anything like that. So here what they want you to do is just to click and drag on the line so you can kind of see the movement. If I move my mouse up and down, this line doesn't really move up and down, but it does move side to side. So because of the constraints that were on here before. So like this one here, this line has to stay horizontal because of that horizontal constraint that's being applied. So I can go through and kind of see that. So, and these other lines, since this one has to stay horizontal, that's why this one is not able to move up and down. It has to stay connected right here by the point, which is the other thing looking at step 5. They want us to look at the coincident points. So there you can kind of see that line is staying horizontal, but you can definitely tell how it kind of behaves. And that's the thing that you're going to look at. When you select those points, you'll see there is a coincident constraint. So coincident constraint means the endpoint of one line and the endpoint of a second line are going through and meeting to make a corner, an edge, or some sort of kind of placement. So a meeting kind of conjuncture means those 2 points are coincident to each other. They're right on top of each other. They're constrained to each other in space. So as we take a look, same kind of thing here. Now, if I go along, like for example, if I take away this, if I click on this and I say delete this horizontal line, you're going to see it's going to mainly, and because of the parallel constraint between this upper line and this one here, it's going to maintain the same kind of movement. So if I delete this parallel constraint, you're going to see now, again, some of the same kinds of things are going to happen. So those are some of the constraints that end up kind of seeing. So let me delete these constraints as well. So, but you're going to be able to see you can adjust the shape, and depending upon this. This is the thing sometimes that students will get a little frustrated with, is when they go to dimension something, a sketch will move on them and then their shape becomes something like this. Well, all you need to do in a lot of cases is, drag that blue line and get the original shape back. So sometimes, they kind of get a little bit worried that, they've messed something up or, something's kind of happened. But just by clicking and dragging on those, you can go through and kind of see, even on these coincident points, you can see how that kind of works. Really, it's very flexible. And what we do within these sketches, We apply constraints, whether they be geometric or they be numeric, and or even a parametric constraint in some case, which is something we'll cover later. We can go through and control this geometry so it's not able to move. We are going to remove those degrees of freedom that it has, and or the movement that it's able to have, and in that way we're able to go through and control our shape a little bit more. All right, so as far as moving down through the steps, they want us to undo our changes. You can always use the undo, drag, sketch. Anytime you go through and have anything, you can always undo, and kind of they want us to get back to the original sketch. So they're assuming that I haven't really done a whole lot of changes. I've been doing a lot of movement on this one. Here we go. Now I'm back to where I drew it. Let me see if I can get my line. There we go. Took it a second to get back to where it was, but here is our finished sketch. They want us to go through the finish and extrude the shape. They don't really define, so if you extrude the shape, you can see, what kind of shape that you get from it. They don't really say how much. We'll do 3 inches just for an arbitrary number. And this goes through and kind of finishes out steps 3 through 8. And the big thing is that I always tell students, and as I teach fusion, is that anytime you see blue lines, click and drag on them, see how they move, and that's going to tell you what kinds of constraints that you need to put on them in order to fully constrain your sketch, in order to extrude, revolve, or do any sort of 3D features to that sketch.